Hello there, everyone. This is your girl Valerie Mason Chase, and listen, the Cookie Man is back.
Rare appearances, yeah, I'm back.
That's because there ain't no football today.
True that.
So, anywho, I just want to welcome you to this episode of Marriage Beyond the Breach. And as always, I would encourage you to subscribe, like, and share. Subscribe, like, and share. So, what we talking about tonight, babe?
How do you take a break in a relationship?
Yeah, or is it a breakup?
Yeah, breakup to make up, whatever you want to call it. No, I'm kidding.
So, I thought about this because I watch a lot of those court shows. A lot of those court shows. I watch Judge Judy. I watch The People's Court. I watch Judge Mathis. I even watch Divorce Court. So on Divorce Court, hey, Vanessa and Eric, as I know he's sitting right next to you. Thanks for watching. And sometimes what I'll see is, especially on Divorce Court, one person will accuse the other one of cheating. And the one who's accused will say, well, no, it wasn't cheating because we were on a break, or maybe they had broken up temporarily. So that got me to thinking, what is this business about taking a break? What does it look like when a couple says they're on a break? And is it different for someone who is in a relationship as opposed to a married couple? So that's what I want us to talk about this evening. And I am going to bring on members of our esteemed panel. So I'm going to bring first, there is Liz Chase. Unmute yourself, Liz.
Yes. Hello.
So I said Liz Chase. And so Chase. So she's a Chase. My beautiful daughter-in-law. So thank you for being here tonight, Liz.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And I'm bringing on the dynamic duo, Rock and Toya Davis. Thank you guys for being here. And last but certainly not least, my bestie, my ride or die, my road dog, my goon, my baby sis, Jackie Lawrence. Hey, so,
hey on Jackie.
Hey, baby. And in the information below the thingy on the YouTube, I can never seem to get that right. The description is everyone's a link to websites, Instagram, whatever. All their information is there. These are some dynamic, amazing, wonderful people, and reach out to them. We have web designer, we got marketing expert, we got a lawyer, we have a prayer warrior who has a prayer ministry. So definitely reach out. Hey, Jono, look at that pretty young thing. You're talking to his wife. So thank you guys for watching. As always, I appreciate you hanging out with us on a Sunday evening. So I want to ask, when you hear take a break, what does that mean to you in a relationship? Jackie, I'm going to start with you.
I don't really know if there's such a thing as taking a break because, and I can only speak from my own experience. When I say I'm taking a break, that means I'm pretty much done with you. And so I know that sometimes people will take a break because they need to breathe and people need to find themselves or just get in touch with their own feelings. But for me, if we have to take a break, then there's a problem. And so we need to say, nice knowing you, bye-bye, see you later.
Okay, so from your perspective, if I'm understanding you correctly, it's not so much a break, but it's really a breakup.
It's really a breakup because, I think that when we say we're going to take a break, what does that really mean? So what are you going to do during that break? And I know one of the questions you have talks about boundaries. Are there boundaries? And how do we know if each one of us is going to uphold those boundaries? I just think there's a lot of room for error, a lot of room for mistakes. I think that there's a lot of room to allow other entities to get involved. And so if it gets to a point where you have to take a break, there's some real self-evaluation that each person has to do.
Okay, I like that. All right. Rock and Toya, what do you guys say?
So Aunt Jackie said a word that's key to me, which is evaluation. A lot of times when we take breaks, that's one of the things. That's the main goal of it. I want to, shed light on certain things, such as maybe the communication needs to be worked on, which is a factor in a lot of relationships.
Yes.
And it also depends on where you are in your relationship. Because sometimes taking a break and you're married, sometimes taking a break does mean to step back, but you don't want to step out.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. I really believe it depends on the factor of where you are in your relationship.
Okay.
And where you want to go.
That's good.
That's good, Rock.
I don't agree with taking a break because to me that's a breakup. Like if we're now, I have to say I think it is different if you're married. I feel like a break when you're married is literally like you're breaking up. I mean, you're married. Like where are you going? You live together. You're together. So what does a break really mean? In a relationship, I can see a break if maybe if it's a long distance relationship because someone moved, and maybe a break to kind of reevaluate if you can do the long distance or something like that, or maybe you guys aren't on the same page anymore. So I could see in a relationship where you might take a break. But when it comes to marriage, no, we in here for better, for worse, and everything. So no.
Okay, good. What say you, Liz Chase Esquire?
Yeah, I mean, I echo all of these same comments. I mean, I think for me personally, it's not something that I really believe in. But I do think Toy made good points. Like if you're in in a marriage and or if you're in a relationship, it really depends on what stage of a relationship you're in. If you're in just a relationship, if maybe you're moving long distance and you want to see if it can work, I could see that being something where it works really well. If you have kids, maybe there's a break to try and come back and reunite a family. So but for me, I do think I agree with Aunt Jackie's sentiments. There's just so much room for murkiness and and outside influences that it's really, really difficult. And I think you really need to evaluate and look and say, why do we need this break? Is it really just because this is not something that works for us and we need to go our own ways, but we're too scared to do that? I think a lot of people use it as an excuse to kind of keep someone stringing along when really you just need to cut ties. And the only way you can move forward is kind of by not looking back and really truly moving forward and taking that step, not doing a two-step back and forth. So
That's good. That's good. I like all of these comments. I know you guys have kind of addressed some of that already, but you can ask that question, babe.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the relationship issues that warrant a couple's taking a break? And like you said, they did touch on some of those reasons anyway.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you guys would like to add to what you have already indicated? What might be going on in a relationship that could perhaps warrant taking a break, so to speak?
If I can answer that, the only thing that comes to mind real quick is if there's abuse going on.
There you go.
You might if you're married, I'm speaking from a marriage perspective. You're living together. There's abuse going on. I'm gonna say the husband's the abuser. They might have to take a break in a relationship or in the marriage. He might have to move out while he's addressing his issues.
Correct.
Before he can come back into the house and they can start to work on the relationship. So that might be one of the only reasons, or one of the reasons that a married couple would separate where they're taking a break.
There are only
unless you're in jail too.
There are only two issues for couples that I'm counseling, married couples or a couple who's living together, where I recommend a separation. And it's something that's called a therapeutic separation that is very specific, has very specific guidelines. And I only recommend that in the case of abuse, any type of abuse, and addiction. Because sometimes there needs to be that separation so the addict can address their addiction and get healthy. Rock, you were about to say something.
Well, in my personal well, not mine, but clients. I have actually a few situations where a husband is having issues with his stepkid, and they can't seem to get on the right page. And essentially, a mother has to take a side, where she would choose well, not necessarily choose between her husband and her child, but it becomes an issue where there has to be some form of separation so that they could, in a sense, come together from a better standpoint. Maybe someone outside looking in can give them the tools on how to have a better relationship. You have a lot of cases of cheating. Cheating is it's a horrible factor in a lot of these cases where people feel like they have to separate. A lot of cases of lying, where not only may either party be lying about who they are, sometimes it's sexuality. Where a person is lying about their sexuality and still trying to discover who they are and figure out who they are in the process of them being with someone. So there's a lot of different factors of why people need to separate. However, there are a lot of times people really need the tools to try to figure out what does it mean for us to separate. Separation doesn't always mean, oh, I'm gonna go out and have sex with everybody else except the person I want to be with. Sometimes it really does mean evaluation. So but it also depends on the character of the person. Realize, you know what, I do need help in this area. Let me get help and figure it out. And maybe being together right now might not be the best situation, especially if it's toxic.
I agree. And Eric asks the question. He said, what if you're married but need some time to step away to figure things out? I know how I would respond to that question, but do any of you want to address that question that Brother Eric is asking?
So I'm going to address it from two perspectives. One, I was married, Eric, and I did step away. I stepped away more than once because I felt like things were just so toxic that we needed a break to figure things out. However, in doing so, when going back, coming together again, there was resentment that was there on both sides. And so if you're going to step away, you have to be on the same page. It has to be an agreement that you're going to do this, and you both parties need to understand why that stepping away is needed and necessary, and you need to have some goals. Why are you stepping away? What is it that you want to achieve? Because we become comfortable when we're no longer with that person every single day. That comfortability begins to set in. And then when you walk back into it, and Liz said it earlier, because that's what you're used to, because that's what you're comfortable with. And so you figure, okay, let's go back, but you haven't really solved the issues.
Something about what Jackie said when people step away. What I found difficult in a relationship, married or not, there's accountability, expectation.
Right.
When you've stepped away, it becomes easy not to feel accountable. There's no, even though you might have talked about some things, there might have been some things discussed, but it becomes real easy. Oh, I ain't got to explain this, or I don't have to talk about this because I'm living on my own.
Yeah, that's a great point.
The difficult part comes now when you come back together, even though you should have been working on some things. Now that accountability comes back into play. And when we got so comfortable not being accountable, that's a big hill to climb, to where you have to explain or your whereabouts or your comings and goings or just be accountable. It's a difficult road to travel when you pull apart like that and you're living on your own with the goal to come back, it's rough.
Yeah, but see, I think that what I hear you describing is more of a real separation in a couple, as opposed to what I, as a counselor, refer to as a therapeutic separation, because is very, very specific, and there's ongoing counseling for both individually and as a couple. So the accountability should not be lost in the midst of that. Should not be.
You're right.
Yeah, I know it happens. Obviously, it does happen, but the accountability should not be lost. See, you and I, we didn't have a therapeutic separation. No. We just flat out separated. There was no accountability to be had. So our situation was kind of unique. Well, not unique. Different from what we are talking about, where a couple says, "Okay, we're gonna take this break to try to figure some stuff out." Okay.
I'm chuckling because Val said, "Yeah, obviously we had a separation, but there was still a lot of times where even with that separation, and we would talk, I felt I had to be accountable because I'm being questioned. I had to have answers, and I didn't like to give those.
You were still,
and like she said, because I was still coming around, so there was some expectations. But I'm saying, I'm here. But see, I'm saying, I would say sometimes I'm here now. Why you got to question what I did last week?
Oh, because that matters, because of what you want to do while you're here now.
So,
yeah. Anywho, we're gonna get back on track.
Right.
Because y'all know we crazy, right? So Shawnetta asked the question: if you step away or needed a break, does someone sleep on the couch? Do they go to another room, or sleeping outside of the house? Liz, how would you answer that question?
I mean, I think it's really the couple, and what I'm hearing everyone say really needs to evaluate if they're going to take a break. One, what the issues are that they want to address. And maybe it doesn't have to be an exhaustive list, but at least, what's the primary issue we want to address? What are the boundaries, and how is this going to look like? And maybe that does look like, for some, sleeping on the couch, or, going to a relative's house and staying there, especially in this, situations of abuse or something like that. So, but I think that that's really something for the couple to really, set out a plan, maybe even a contract or something to that effect, where they say, and have, a professional help with it, so that they say, okay, we are going to take a break. We've identified at least this one issue that, the primary issue that we're going to work on. This is what, how we see it working, right now in the short term. We're going to get professional help so that we can really, have a solid plan to go forward and for reunification or reconciliation. But I think that really all needs to be done at the outset, or you're going to have those issues that Aunt Jackie said, of that resentment, and just come back and not really having a full grasp on why you even took the break to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. Liz's point, I feel like, okay, if you're taking this break, you definitely have to know what you're taking the break for, because if you're in the same household, you're pretty much going to see each other every single day. So what are you actually taking a break from if you're not outside of the house? So to me, if you're going to take a break, to me, you shouldn't see each other, depending on what it is, because you need a break from that person. That's, to me, what the break is, in my opinion. Unless you have a house where there's separate entrance, downstairs, upstairs, something like that. But
in
my mind, if I feel like I need a break from someone, I don't want to see you. I don't want to have to constantly see you, or have to question you, or even, think of anything that's going on you're doing outside of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Rock, I saw a look on your face when Toya was speaking. Did you have something you wanted to address?
No, not necessarily. When we went into this marriage, we went into it with, this is it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And you ain't going nowhere, neither am I. Yep. And we're pretty new to this wedding marriage thing, but we also came from previous relationships where we wanted to work on things better than the previous. So big communication. Like my communication was off. From my previous relationships, I was very dismissive because I always had the attitude like, oh, I can just get somebody else by, not realizing that I was chipping away at the security of my relationship. So I don't do that with my wife at all. Like, sometimes we don't fight or argue really, but we have a disagreement. Sometimes our separation is she'll go to the living room, I go to the bedroom. Watching her movies, I'm watching mine.
Yeah.
So some nights she might feel, she want to stay on the couch. Some nights I might feel like that. But all in all, we still in this house.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And you guys have touched on this next thing I wanted to talk about. Do you think there should be boundaries? Should there be expectations? Should there be specific guidelines? Whatever your position is, talk to me about that.
I think there should be, as Jackie said, if you're taking a break, you should know why you're taking a break, and you should set goals. Like, okay, we're taking a break so we can work on each other to be better for each other, so we can come back together. That's the purpose of taking a break, so you can come back stronger. So if you're not setting goals for each other, then what's the point?
Yeah, I agree. Anybody else want to tackle that?
Yeah, I'm very big on again, one of the key words is accountability. If we're still married, I'm still accountable to my wife.
Right.
Whatever the dynamics of what a breakup is, I'm still accountable. So if she's asking me questions, I'm still going to answer it. If she wants to know where I'm going, I'm still going to tell her, and vice versa. So the lines of communication is very, very, very big on every level. So if the communication is off, that's where the problems lie.
Right.
So the little small minute things can turn very big very fast, especially if you're not on the same page.
Yeah. I agree 100%. Because I actually I have a contract for couples who I recommend therapeutic separation when there's been one of those issues that I mentioned earlier, either abuse or some sort of addiction. And I will sit with them. We'll talk about what each wants, what each one expects, what it's going to be required for reunification. Because you can't just put it on a time frame. It also has to be related to behaviors. So we'll go over it. I'll have each one of them sign it, and I meet with each one individually. And periodically, I still will see them, meet them as a couple. And Toya, speak to what you were saying, I still recommend that they do spend some time together. Only because I don't want that emotional connection to be completely severed. Because that is hard to get that back once it's gone. So I want there to still be some level of emotional connection. So for them to still see each other, maybe date once in a while, but always in a public place, and always when there has to be an agreement. Everything has to be agreed upon mutually by the two of them. And I think when you have that level of specificity, it makes it a bit easier for the couple to come back because everybody's on the same page. They know what the goals are. They know what the expectations are. And listen, sometimes they be telling on each other. Miss Valerie, he did so and so. Miss Valerie, she did so and so. Okay, we'll talk about that when we come to our couple sessions, and we'll try to work those things out. So, what are anybody else's thoughts on guidelines, boundaries, expectations?
I think that's important. And again, for me, it's always from personal experience, because a lot of times we use the excuse of taking a break because we know we no longer want to be with that individual, but we're too afraid to leave. We're too afraid to really sever the ties. And so we use that as an excuse. So when those goals and those boundaries are set, you know that you have something to work towards if you're both on the same page.
Yeah. But see, when somebody uses a break as a means of really breaking up with someone, that's unfair, because you keep the other person hanging, because the other person is thinking that we're really on a break and there's a possibility for us to come back together. So I think that's very, very unfair. I remember something that Steve Harvey said many years ago. I am not particularly a fan of Steve Harvey, but this one thing he said I kind of thought about, because when people take a break, they say, okay, well, we're kind of off and on. Our relationship has been kind of off and on. And what he says, women do off. Men don't do off, because if they off with you, that means they're just on with somebody else.
That's a fact.
Yeah. So Rock, go ahead, speak to that.
Yeah. So like, again, that's what my mindset. Well, all right. First, you have to be a certain type of man, right? I'm just keep it 100. Most unattractive men have difficulties in these areas. Most men who are able to go out and meet women fairly easy, whether it be personality, financially, looks, they had, again, like myself, I had a very dismissive attitude. If you rock my little world, I was very much dismissive. Bye. You want to go? Go. Bye. But again, I didn't realize until later on how much I was chipping away at the security of my relationship, because she felt like anytime we have an argument, you always like, you can leave.
Yeah.
And so it made for her to be like, I don't know where we are in this. And so I learned that I value my wife way more, but I never do that with her, ever. Anything that she has to say, I'll sit, even if I don't want to hear it, I'll sit there and listen.
Yeah, you learn to do that quick. You do want to
listen. But I value what she says. So
I get it.
Let me say that.
And I think that there are women in today's society who are just like men when it comes to, well, if I'm not with you, I'm gonna be with somebody. Because that's the society today. It's so easy to get someone else. Like, it's very, very easy to get somebody else. So
get someone else or get someone else of value.
Well, that's the thing, and that's what I'm saying. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a value, because some people think, okay, well, I'm on a break and I'm not emotionally connected to this person. I'm just going to have sex, or I'm just going to do this really quick, or I'm not going to, you know what I mean? And there's a show on, I don't know if it's on Netflix, but it was couples who wanted to get married, and it was called, I think, like The Ultimatum. So
I saw that. Oh, yeah. Ooh,
so they had about 8 couples come and say, okay, well, you didn't want to marry me, so we're all going to take a break, but we're all going to meet these other different people and see how we interact with them and see if we like them.
Yeah. And
the outcome was insane, because people were really going to drop their relationship based off of someone that they were attracted to for about 2-3 days.
Remember what I said? Look.
And the counterparts was like, I cannot believe he's about to leave me. I gave him his ultimatum, but he's about to leave me for someone he only knew for 3 days.
Yeah.
So, like you said, accountability, and it's kind of easy to kind of just get with someone without the substance.
Yeah. And that's why I don't like ultimatums. Ultimatums just don't work. And another thing is, for married couples, if you have the mindset of divorce is not an option, you can somewhat navigate that break, if you're going to take one, the separation or whatever, once it's agreed upon. I think you can navigate that a bit easier and have a certain sense of security if both partners agree divorce is not an option. We have to take the separation for whatever period of time for the reasons that we've agreed on. We've agreed on boundaries and all that, but it gives each one a certain level of security, knowing that my partner feels just as strongly as I do about coming back together and divorce not being an option. Because when people throw that out, You are so right, Rock. There's no security in a relationship when one or the other threatens to leave all the time.
Yeah.
There's no security, and the one to whom it is said now has no incentive to invest anything in the relationship.
Right.
There's no reason to invest in a relationship when your partner is threatening here and there that they're going to leave. I might divorce you. I might leave. I can get this one over there. Yeah, there's no reason to invest at that point.
Yeah, that makes the other person in a relationship hearing that all the time scared to even disagree with something you might say, because your first thing out of their mouth is "I'm out" or "you could leave" and everything like that. That makes that person very timid and doesn't work.
Yeah, that's an unhealthy relationship. Yeah, because there's an imbalance there. It's an imbalance of power, because the one who is threatening to leave all the time is the one who is perceived to have all of the power and control in their court.
What do you think are the possible benefits and risks of taking a break?
Well, I mean, essentially, it can either get stronger or be broken. It's really no in between. In between, you're still at the same place you was at when you started. So, I've seen a lot of situations where a lot of couples they'll take a break and it worked, and equally I've seen a lot of people who took a break and became opportunists and it broke it. So, again, a lot of people they get into these situations and they don't set the terms of the situations that they're in, and essentially, they go out here and meet somebody else, and then unfortunately they go out here, they meet somebody else and have the same issue with the new person that they met. Because they never fixed the situation in the first place. So all they do is carry their old baggage to the new one.
And I have to say, with certain couples, there's a risk to not only yourselves, but to your children, if you have children. A lot of things are at stake when you run a household together. Finances, your children. So a lot of things can suffer, not only your relationship when it comes to taking a break.
Yeah, that's good. That's very true.
I think one of the benefits would be, I think the saying, you don't know what you have until it's gone. That could be, helpful during a break, that you appreciate the person, you appreciate, maybe the little things that you didn't realize they were doing, or, all of that you have, when you step back, you can, kind of see and reflect on. I think another benefit is just, self-work, and you're able to, focus on yourself and work on yourself and move yourself forward in hopes of moving your relationship forward. But I think one of the risks, as we've identified, is just not coming back together, or, further, dissolving that relationship. And I think, the parties really need to identify, if we took this break, what's something that I would be really upset that you did when we were on the break. If it's, sleeping with someone else, or if it's, I don't know, there might just be things, talking to a person, or, leaving a job, or whatever the things that you might do on the break that the other that would really upset you. I think that needs to be identified, in the parties, and say, if you're doing this when we're on a break, like, this is a, no contest zone for me. I'm not going to be able to come back and, reunify. So I think those are, some of the risks and benefits.
Yeah.
I mean, when we walked into this marriage, my wife knew she got a prize when she got me. And but I equally think very highly of my wife. She is amazing in any and every way, and that's why I married her, because I've been around the block and I've done my thing.
The block, the city,
no one measures up to her.
I love that. Say that again.
No one
Yes.
measures up to her. That's
I
why I
love that.
married her, because you got to know what the effects are. Keyword, like Liz said, you got to know what the effects are when somebody is gone and you lose them. You like, oh,
Mm.
I know that, if I did something stupid and lose her, I would never be the same.
Mm.
I would never be the same. Those
That's
consequences are dire.
Yeah, that's good. I
Wow.
like that. Rock, I want to come back. I'm sorry. Who was talking?
No, I just said that's good.
Mm.
That's good. That
Oh,
blesses my heart.
and just so y'all know, at their wedding ceremony, when he was saying his vows, the first line out of his mouth is, "First of all, I deserve you."
Yes.
I will never forget that. I will never
Yes.
forget that.
That's
I thought that was so profound.
Yeah, because you go through experiences in life, and experiences are supposed to be learning factors, right? And then you go through these learning factors, and you're supposed to evaluate them as you get older and wiser. That's why it took me so long. It took me to my 40s to get married, because I realized that in my 20s and my 30s, I was too immature to be married. It was too much, too much me running around and going from country to country and city to city, and I had no desire to be married. I told my bishop that I was like, I don't see me getting married. I don't see it happening. And he said, "Why you say that?" I said, "Because I'm out in these streets. These streets need me." He said, "You're just immature." He said, "You're just immature, and that's why you feel that way." And so he said, "When you get married, I'm going to do your wedding." And he flew in from somewhere else, came in, flew in, did our wedding, and then had to fly back out somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? So, and all because I told him the value of who I had.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's important to really to know yourself and be in touch with who you are, because imagine if you had gotten married those years ago when you were so immature. I think you would have been doing a disservice to the both of y'all. Y'all probably would have been destroying each other emotionally.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Even when we met, I was still trying to figure it out. And I told her, she always tell people I curved her.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit.
He friend zoned me.
I did. But I was trying to get to where I wanted to be. Like, I wanted to be an addition to what she had, not a hindrance to what she had.
Yes.
So in order for me to get there, I had to work on me, and for real.
Yeah. And you know something? I think that for so many couples, if there is attention given to that, to working on themselves before they get married, and for a lot of reasons, that break or separation wouldn't even be necessary.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't even be necessary. But I think we are sometimes so enamored with the idea of marriage, of having a husband or having a wife or being in that relationship, that we don't really take time to discover who we really are. And therefore we take all of our broken self and all of our toxicity and all of that we bring into that relationship. Because that's why I recommend premarital counseling, pre-moving together counseling, pre-relationship counseling, when all of that.
But some people don't agree with that, because they say that's shacking up.
They say, well, okay, that they say they don't want counseling because they're shacking up.
No, they don't
living together.
Some people don't believe in living together because
they're already shacking up.
Yeah.
But when you consider the number of people who, after having shacked up for a while, get married, and a couple of years later, what happened? A lot of times they'll end up splitting up.
Yeah.
That break.
Because there's sometimes when you get that piece of paper, even though some say that piece of paper don't matter, when you get that piece of paper, sometimes it causes a shift in your mentality. Because now you're not just my man, you my husband.
Right.
So now there is a different expectation, perhaps.
Right.
And I think that's where some of the problems come in, because we might have been shacking up for 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever number of years. But now that we are married, there may be a different expectation of each other as a husband or as a wife.
Oh, I mean, you'll be very surprised that a lot of people don't have a lot of great examples of what a marriage is. Marriage is basically work. And so a lot of people don't see the work. They just think, oh, we get married. There are a number of people, clients of mine, who have been together for years, 5, 6, 7 years. And the minute they got married, things started falling apart. And I'm like, well, you've been together all this time, 6, 7 years. You lived in the same apartment. You paid the same bills. You essentially were already married. But there's something about when you get to the accountability of it, then all of a sudden it falls apart.
Yeah. I think it has to do with the level of commitment, and when you are married, as opposed to when you are in a relationship, or maybe even just living with someone. That's my thought anyway. Doesn't mean I'm right, but that's what I think. I think there's a difference in the level of commitment, because sometimes I hear people say, because I'll ask some of my clients who have been living together for a while and have children, I always ask, help me understand what have been some of the obstacles, or whatever, however I may phrase it. Essentially, I want to know, why haven't you gotten married? You've been living together for 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, or whatever. Sometimes I hear them say, well, I can't afford to get married. No, you can afford a wedding.
Right.
That's what you're thinking of. You can't afford a wedding. We ain't talking about wedding. I'm talking about a marriage. Because you go down to the JP.
Yep. And I say the very same thing. A marriage is $35. And then the next thing I say, if you can't afford $35, you shouldn't be in a relationship, period.
At all. Right?
But conversely, some of those people may already feel that they have the commitment of marriage in that, in that union that they have together, and they don't need that piece of paper necessarily, because it is just a $35 piece of paper or a contract, and they don't, it's not necessarily something that they value. Like, they value the foundation and commitment between each other, and that's what they want to work on, and not a piece of paper. Because I think a lot of times when people do live together, or or in a committed relationship before, sometimes they use marriage as a crux when they already know that things are broken. They use it to try and repair things and say, okay, we're going to get married. It's going to fix all of our problems, but it doesn't fix anything. The marriage is not there to fix anything. So I think it's important that people understand what, they're working on. And it's the foundation between the, husband and wife, or whomever, the parties, that, and that commitment. And that's what's important. Not, an extravagant wedding and all of that stuff. It's, the commitment and, the accountability and what that means to them. And that can mean different things to different couples. So
that's a great point.
That is an excellent point. But Liz, also, as an attorney, that there are also legal protections that a married person has that someone who's just living together, they don't have.
Correct. Yep. And there are also legal implications that are not good, that are negative. For example, we're not talking about this, but student loans are really, a lot of people, most people in my generation have crippling student loans, and when you get married, those student loans and those payments, that's going to be affected, and that's a huge thing. So, like that was, even just my scenario with John, that was an impediment to us getting, legally married, because now it's two incomes and we're on income-based repayment plans. And now this is going to change things, and as much as you don't want to boil it down to a contract, it is a contract. So that's why in our relationship, personally, it was never the focus of getting a piece of paper and being legally married, because, we understood that was, the path we were on. We were committed to each other. We understood our commitment and our foundation to each other. And that's what we wanted to work on, not necessarily, just having a piece of paper to some degree, because there are legal things that are great about it too. Now I guess maybe it's more difficult for him to leave me, but he can still do it. And
listen, he ain't
some
going
benefits
nowhere.
in joint taxes. Exactly, neither of us are going anywhere. So and
that
is what we established well before getting
long
married,
before you got married. Yes,
exactly.
Yes. And to your point, Liz, about I know this is a little bit off topic, but that's the reason why some seniors who either are widows or widowers or maybe never been married, who are getting Social Security or whatever, don't get married, because if they do, that impacts some of the that impacts their finances, so to speak.
Absolutely. So I think it's important to make those vows to each other, in whatever way you do it, or before God, before your family, in whatever way, you're making that commitment with each other. It's not necessarily the contract. What's my husband saying? I ain't going anywhere. Ditto, babe.
No,
that's right, Jado.
He don't want to deal with Mamu. He ain't going nowhere. Mamu will be on his tail. So we might have already talked some of this already, but how can a couple prevent their break from ending?
Oh, excuse me.
Are we keeping you awake?
A little bit. I'm sorry. My apologies.
He done circled this last question 5 times trying to get my attention. Oh my Lord, my husband is a hot mess. How can a couple prevent their break from ending in a breakup?
I had a couple of things.
He done wrote stuff down.
Well, we mentioned goals as one way to help prevent it from ending in a breakup. Mm-hmm. And I put spend time together, whether that's once in a while going on a date or just communicating, talking on the phone. Because I think it was mentioned through a lot of this conversation, even though there's a break, you still want to keep some kind of connection while you're working on something collectively or individually. Yeah. You don't want to just ghost each other.
Right.
Like I think Liz, someone said a lot of other entities can get involved, especially when you ghost each other. So those were a couple of ways to prevent it from being a breakup.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that. Date, court your significant other during the time, like really solidify, kind of what that's going to look like. Okay, we're still together in a sense, and we're going to work on this and do X, Y, and Z, by dating, by going to counseling, by making that plan and just going back to that contract, making that contract, outlining, when it begins, when it ends, and what your non-contingents are, what you would be, and I think it really takes a minute to look into yourself and say, this is a no for me, but whatever it is, you have to address that and get it out there.
Yes.
Because if it happens during the break and then people say, well, we were on a break, it doesn't matter, that's not going to fly. So you got to really identify what that is and not have that be an excuse. So there's no resentment, as Aunt Jackie said.
Yeah, I agree. I think also you have to go back to, why did you start dating in the first place? What was it about each other that drew you together, that you wanted to be a couple, you wanted to be in a relationship? I think sometimes we just have to stop and go back to the beginning and begin to build again, if each person is honest with themselves, about themselves, and honest to one another. And I've listened to all of you who everybody's married except me. And I've listened to all of you, and I can honestly say, even being divorced, like, I believe in marriage. I think it's a wonderful thing. And only God himself, because I'm not looking for a husband, only God himself, he would have to put on some neon lights on this brother and say, this one's for you. But I believe in marriage. I think it's a wonderful thing. And so I would say to anybody, if you're thinking about marriage, and if there were some red flags, pay attention to them.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, you can have a breakup or a take some time away. What you were presented with in the beginning, 9 times out of 10 is what it is. Pay attention to that, and don't deceive yourself or deceive that person because you think this is what the next step is, that you're supposed to get married. Because in the long run, you just wind up hurting one another.
Yeah. That's good.
So, I personally don't think there's a rule book or a blueprint for how to keep something together. Everybody is individual. You have to know what your individual person is. You got to know who they are, what their character is. A lot of factors come into play. And, being vulnerable when I went into my marriage, because I always had a wall up. You put a wall up because you don't want people to hurt you.
Right.
Especially if you've been hurt. What I did was I had to learn how to be vulnerable with her because, again, the world is a big place and there's a lot of people in it, but no one can hurt me except for people in my circle.
Right.
People I love, and particularly my partner. And so when we got married, I allowed myself to be vulnerable with her. So with that being said, as the man in this family, one of our more important things was prayer. We pray together. A family that prays together stays together. I truly believe in that. Another thing is a lot of the factors of us being together is honestly, when it started from the beginning, it stayed to the present. Like she still cooks for me. She still put 20 something pounds on me. we laugh every day. If she has a complaint, I listen.
Go ahead.
If I have a complaint, she listens. If nobody wants to hear it. We rely on each other. Wherever she falls short, I'm going to pick it up. And vice versa. So there's no room for us to think about breakups and all these other things. We just don't, and a lot of people say, oh, y'all early and y'all married and whatever. We've been together going on 5 years now. And yes, and she was my friend first.
Important.
Another factor. And when we discuss things or go through things, we discuss them as friends. Like, what would your friend say?
Right.
So we don't put ourselves, I don't put myself in unnecessary positions where I have to worry about breakups and all that other stuff. So again, it's for me, it's how the person you're dealing with. There's really no blueprint. Right. How to address the type of person you're dealing with.
I think underneath all of what you said is the fact that you protect your relationship.
Oh yeah.
You have that friendship, and the two of you are intentional about protecting what you have.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's very, very important. That's boundary number one.
Oh yeah.
Especially boundary around that relationship.
One main factor, and I tell this to any and everybody, We keep people out of our relationship.
Yeah.
Whatever we go through, we go through. We don't need nobody else's opinion,
Absolutely.
advice, except for people we love and trust. You know what I'm talking about. But we keep people out of our relationship.
Yeah, that's key.
Absolutely.
That is very, very key. Go ahead, Cookie.
Go ahead, finish up. It's almost time anyway.
Okay. No, okay, I won't say it. But anywho, yeah. So I think that really kind of sums up the topic that we were talking about tonight. So anyone who's listening now or later, consider if you really want to take a break in your relationship. What does that mean? What will that look like? Why would you consider taking a break in the first place? Is it for safety reasons? Is it to address addiction? What are those reasons? What's the plan? What's the goal? And Rock, something you mentioned earlier about when it is a blended family and there are those types of issues and there's a break for that reason, how, if at all, will the children be incorporated in that process? I think that's something to think about as well, depending upon the ages of the children. How are you going to incorporate them? Because that's a factor. If it's a factor in the reason for taking a break, then it must be a factor in how you come back together. At least I think so.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, as always, it has been an amazing conversation. I love you all. I appreciate you. Next Sunday is what?
Oh,
Super Bowl.
We won't be here.
We won't be here next Sunday.
The Cookie Man got so happy.
Yes.
You know what? I got to say this again. I said it about Rock, but as I'm looking at the screen, except for Liz, I mean, I knew her when she was younger too. But and Toya, Lord have, I was about to say Tanya or something. It just makes me think how young Jackie was, and she's all grown up. Rock sitting here sounding like Einstein and whatnot. There's all these people, and it does me flutters. It makes me feel good. Makes me feel good. I love y'all.
I love you too.
Love you too.
No, we won't be here next. We won't be here next Sunday, but Sunday after that, we're going to be talking about what it means to be a wife. And I have a very special guest that's coming on, and some of us will be here to talk to that very special guest. Okay. So again, subscribe, like, share, and I love you all, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
All right, family.
Love you.
Love y'all.